What's up, fam? Welcome to another installment of TSC Unleashed. We're in the building. Big ups to the family members joining the live stream today. We're a little off today on the dime. We had a few things to take care of, but we here nonetheless. Who that to the beautiful black and gold family members chiming in and supporting the TSC live stream, Unleashed stream that is. Big ups to Brian, Tyra, Jerry. Good to see y'all in the chat as well, family. Much love to y'all. And all the family members that'll be chiming in. Good to see y'all as well on the replay. In this episode of TSC Unleashed, we won't hold you guys for very long. We'll talk a few news items with you guys on this show today. We'll cover, of course, the breakdown for the upcoming game tonight as the Miami Heat take on the Boston Celtics. Game 2 of the Eastern Conference Finals. Miami up 1-0. Can the Celtics even the series? We'll break that down today. Also, in NFL news, there's also a Thursday game going on. It'll be tonight as well. The Bengals face off against the Browns. Joey B, our LSU favorite son, Joey B, representing Cincinnati, man. He'll take on Makerfield. So it's a battle of first-round draft pick quarterbacks. Let's see who will get the win there in Cleveland. So we'll go into that game as well. And then we'll cover a little Saints news toward the back in the show as well. So I'm Big Q on the show. And we'll have Mozzie, who should be chiming in momentarily, and he'll jump in here, and we'll know sooner or later whether he'll be here or not. So let's get it going on TSC Unleashed. We'll keep it rolling. We'll keep it moving on the show. So let's get into the first news item here, family, about the Celtics and the Heat. Now, I don't know if a lot of people seen that Bama Bio's really fire block in the matchup, man, and I'm looking forward to this matchup. This is a pretty good Eastern Conference Finals in the bubble. Very interesting. And Miami cannot be overestimated in the series. They're having fun. They're playing well. Jimmy Butler's playing well. But the Celtics might be just a tad bit, a little bit more talented than the Miami Heat. But Tatum, this is when these series, especially in the Eastern Conference Finals, can Tatum move into he's already a star. But can he move up into superstar level? That's yet to be determined. But we'll find out and see if they can do any of that in this matchup. But Jimmy Butler, man, like I said, it's been absolutely fantastic through the series. 19 points a game in the series between these two teams. And we'll see how far they can get into game one. If any indication, the Celtics and the Heat Conference Finals is not devoid of any action, not at all. Miami got better. They got to get better here to take on this team. 117-104 in overtime was the last one. Then it's going to kick off a nice story. The teams will look to bring similar energy in Game 2 Thursday night in the NBA bubble. Now, Game 1 featured a 14-point comeback for the Heat in the fourth quarter before Jimmy Butler and Bama Bio did what they needed to do in overtime. Butler completed the game-winning three-point play with about 12 seconds left, but it was Bama Bio's block to deny Jason Tatum the chance with a little less than 4 seconds left that generated the most attention post-game. Didn't hurt the fact that Magic also tweeted it was the best defensive play he had ever seen, and that was big. Now, Butler said that I would agree with what Magic said. I really would. I think what Bam did to save the game and to make sure that we win by putting his body on the line, that is really a big play. Number one, said Abayo in the ranking to play among the highlights of his 3-year career. He really was big. The effort by Abayo helped Miami ensure its 9th win and 10 playoff contests. Meanwhile, the loss has Boston trailing for the first time in the series in the playoffs. It's a great game. Two great teams who played really hard, Celtics guard Marcus Smart said. They got the plays that they needed that mattered the most, and they did their job. Smart continued his strong playoffs with 26 points in a loss, but it wasn't enough to make up for another poor showing by All-Star point guard Kemba Walker. Walker needed 19 shots to get 19 points on the night. This is his third straight game failing to reach 20 points while shooting worse than 32%. He was 1 of 9 from downtown. That says it all. And of course, he said, I'm just playing terrible, to be honest with you. Not much I can say, but I have to be better. I have to be better. I have to be better. That's pretty much what's going on with these guys. Now, as far as the Celtics Heat, let's flash in and bring in my co-host, Uncle Mozzie, and let him break down what his thought process is on what's going on between the Miami Heat and the Boston Celtics. All right, Uncle Mozzie, come on in. And let's hear what you got to say about that.
Hey, what's going on, fam? How y'all doing? Uncle Miles, Uncle Swami in the building. I should say. I gotta get my theme music, by the way, and change my avatar to a Persian rug. But what's going on with the Celtics and Heat matchup is, man, I think people in general don't give the Miami Heat and what they've done with that organization over the last 2-3 years, what Pat Riley and Coach Spo has done with that. Bringing in Jimmy Butler, still making sure they had somewhat of a nucleus, bringing the best out of Bam. This team is for real. This is not, I don't know why people discount this team like they're not for real. And in previous years, yeah, it was a little rocky, but when you bring that grit and attitude that Jimmy Butler brings, he gives that team an identity. He gives that team, Miami is a really gritty, tough, hard-nosed team. There's nothing flashy about them. They don't have a bunch of superstars. They don't play pretty boy basketball. They play some really grit, hard-nosed basketball. Can they be defeated? Yeah, but you have to understand, man, these people are 9-1 in the playoffs. 9-1. So, like, I mean, for real, these people play. They're not joking. This thing, you know what I'm saying? These people are 9-1. Wrap your mind around that. Nobody else that's in the bubble has won 9 games. I understand it's in the East, but they also had to play the number 1 seed in the NBA and beat them. So, I mean, you know, I don't discount this team. And I think that people, they do discount, and it starts with the coaching because nobody respected Coach Spo since he's been a coach. He started off as a statistician. They gave him the job, and they looked at it as a coin job. Okay, we're just going to stick him there. He's a token guy that Pat Riley conversed through him to get to LeBron without it being so direct. But like Coach Spo is way more in depth than that, and I think people are starting to see that. Whether or not the populace will give Coach Spo and that team the credit they deserve, I don't know. It remains to be seen. But rest assured that Boston they got their hands full when it comes to this Miami Heat team.
Yeah, and no doubt about it, this is definitely a 7-game series between these two teams. They mirror each other in philosophy. They run, they play defense. Both coaches are excellent. They have key offensive weapons. Jason Tatum is an interesting matchup against Jimmy Butler. Brown is awesome. The key to this series, in my opinion, for Boston is Kemba Walker. He has really been struggling. He has to become an all-star, Kemba, in this series for them to have an advantage over Miami because, listen, Tyler Hero's bringing it. Kendrick Nunn's going to bring it. Goran Dragic is bringing it. It's up to Kemba Edwards. He's got to get it done. Kemba Walker, he has to get it done in this series to make it work. So it'll be interesting. We're watching.
Now, with me, I'm looking, I think, in my opinion, I do think that Walker needs to get it going. But in my opinion, I think that the X factor for the Boston Celtics is going to be Marcus Smart. I think Marcus Smart is going to be the X factor. Why? Because not planning for him in the right fashion, he'd come out there and drop 30 like it's nothing. And you didn't even game plan for this dude. You didn't even realize this man was on a team, and he came out there and blessed you with 30 right quick. So I think Marcus, I do agree that Kemba Walker is definitely going to have to get it going to keep the games close where it needs to be. But for Boston to do what they've been doing since they started the playoffs, you gotta get Marcus Smart going. You look at the games they lost, Smart did not have a good game. Every game that Smart had 20 points or better, 18 points or better, 16 points or better, they won. Marcus Smart is going to be the X factor for the Boston Celtics, just like as I believe Hero will be the X factor for the Miami Heat. Why? Because you're not looking for these guys to come out and have I'm going to rephrase that. You know they have the ability to have big games, you just don't know when. So you can't game plan because it just might be their night. And if it is, watch out, strap up, hold on, because you're going to be in for a really bumpy ride.
Well, let me play devil's advocate on that one, Uncle Miles, if you don't mind. Dealing with it to kind of challenge that preference on Smart, because he scored 26 points in game 1 and they still lost by 3. So
Yeah, but it was double overtime. So you can't equate that. I need that to be scored by the time the clock hits zeros. So I can't add 2 more overtimes.
Okay, so you want him to put 20 plus in the bucket before we go in overtime, before the 4 quarters are exhausted, is what you're saying.
Yeah, think about it. If he'd had 20, 22 at the end of the game, it wouldn't even been an overtime. Think about it.
But
You're answering the question for you. You know,
that's true.
huh?
You're right. Kemp Smart is a major contributor. He's been playing starting minutes, and they like his production, his defense he brings to the starting lineup. But like I said, he definitely helps off.
He filled that Gordon. He filled what Gordon Hayward left off, but which we will have him back, by the way. But he filled that Hayward gap. Without Hayward, Marcus Smart kind of stepped up and filled that gap in. But if we can get that kind of production out of him on a consistent basis, even when Hayward comes back into the rotation, and that's something that we really gonna have to P2. We're gonna have to really see how they handle Gordon Hayward coming back in this rotation, because they did this exact same thing happen when he broke his leg a couple years ago. You remember they went on a tear. Obviously, they lost to Cleveland, and Isaiah Thomas just couldn't get around him. But that team played lights out without him in the game. And, you know, for him, I guess it had to be kind of disheartening, because he just worked his way to that star, not superstar, but that star status where he had signed a new contract. They had respected it as him being partly his team. And he goes out with a season-ending injury, and they ball out of control. I know you remember that year. That's probably about 3 years ago. They balled out of control during the Isaiah Thomas experiment. And, I mean, you know, I don't know. So we really got to pay attention to that as well, how they're going to treat that going forward with him working his way back in the lineup after being gone the entire playoffs.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see just how it shakes up, because Coach Brad Stevens and Eric Spoelstra, these are two students of the games, man. Excellent coaches, man. This will be a fantastic series, man. And I mean, you can't make too many errors with these two teams, these two strategists, man. It's going to be fun watching this series in the Eastern Conference. Wow. And I would dare say these two conference matchups, with Miami versus Boston, and of course the Lakers with the Nuggets, this is going to be really fantastic basketball this year, let me tell you. Anyway, let's move to the next subject, Uncle Mozzie. Cincinnati and the Browns play tonight, man, 7:20 Central Time. Hey, Cincinnati, Joey B in the building. You know, that's our favorite LSU son right there. You know, he represented Cincinnati. Joey B in the building. So Joey B didn't have they lost the first game here. Short week here. Joey B bounced back against Cleveland, who was decimated, blown out, eviscerated by Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens. Now, Joey B has an opportunity on a short week to kind of get his first win in here. Now, of course, we know that Joey B was raised in the Ohio area. He learned his ABCs and multiplication tables in those schools. And outside ball got lessons from Paul Brown, Jim Brown, Boomont Science, and Bernie Kosar, and the rest of that dog pound. On Thursday night, this year's #1 overall draft pick and reigning Heisman Trophy winner, just maybe the quarterback to change Cincinnati's Bungle franchise to a Bengal franchise once again, and make his first road start against the Bengals, and before the Bengals against the Browns, to renew the rivalry with these teams. Two very young quarterbacks trying to learn the game. And of course, Joey B says, I know the history behind it, and I'm excited for the first one. 23-year-old entry into the Battle of Ohio also comes as a significant date, as it marks the 100th year anniversary of the league's start in Canton, where the organizational meeting on September the 7th, 1920, kicked things off. This is an old school rivalry. Burrow debuted last week against the Chargers, went about as expected. He made his mistakes. He showed some resilience that took him from a third stringer at Ohio State to a national champion at LSU. Had the Bengals poised for that possible win, they might have missed the last second field goal to force overtime, but yet they lost 16-13. Burrow scored his first TD on the 23-yard run. He finished 23 of 36 for 193, but was sharp down the stretch, going 8 of 11 for 70 yards on his drive. And it's a lot. The Browns were searching for any positives after getting blown out 38-6 by Baltimore. That route soured the excitement that everybody had for it, with Kevin Stefanski, who was talking a lot of positive stuff about what the Browns can do. But let's see what happens. There's also more scrutiny around Baker Mayfield. He set the tone last week with an interception against Cleveland's first possession, and another uneven performance has raised more questions as whether he is the long-term master of the Browns. Maybe Mayfield knows he's got to play better, and he says that there's a sense of urgency. We hurt ourselves very early on in that game. The focus is on eliminating those mistakes and playing our game. So other information is that it'll be a small crowd that'll be allowed to participate in the matchup. About 6,000 will be allowed to enter the stadium due to the restrictions. And Stefanski said cardboard cutouts and ambient crowd noise created a strange environment last week in Baltimore. But I'm telling you, it's like a fake Hollywood plastic production. Guys are struggling with that.
You had to see the people, bro. They look like dummies, bro. It was crazy.
It's crazy.
Like boxing dummies are crazy.
It's absolutely insane. It's like going to some of these restaurants and they got dummies set up and the tables apart. This is absolutely insane what's going on. But I mean, this is where we living at, man. Go ahead, Five. What you was gonna say?
Mm-hmm. Oh no, I was just commenting. I was laughing at that because I saw some teams actually. It reminded me of that game pop up, or I can't remember if it was like a board game where they had the people and the people these big cutouts and these pop up, and it's crazy. I really wish they do away with that. If you're not gonna have people in the stands, just don't have them in the stands. Don't put these fake the fake pop cardboard cutout blow up people there. And then the crowd noise, that guy is amazing. It's to the point with the crowd noise. I watched last week when the home team did good. He actually had it where the crowd roared, and when the bad call came, they booed. This guy's on point. I don't know who he is, where they found him at. This dude is amazing that he was able to do that, bro. Like, he was on point. Like, I thought I was in a real NFL game. They did a really good job with that, considering they have a hollow 70,000 seat arena. The angles were real tight. The camera motion was real close up on just the sideline and just the plays. And the only time you saw the crowd at all was when they were kicking extra points and field goals. So the NFL did a really good job with that. But I mean, come on, we gotta do at least 10,000. 10,000 will be all right. You can still pump some noise in to add to the 10,000, but 15,000, I think we can work with that. That's doable. I'm willing to live with that.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, man. Just fight through all of this stuff and get past it, man, is the big thing. So life can get back to what it was. It's the main thing. Burrow deep is one of Cincinnati's biggest issues in the opener. Missing receivers downfield. John Ross, A.J. Green got behind coverage, but Burrow overthrew them and missed all 5 deep throws. He got an arm, man. How could you overthrow John Ross? But he did. But he just has to settle in. And I'm just saying, Ross is a speedster. And then, of course, they're talking about chemistry issues in Cleveland with Mayfield and Odell Beckham, Jarvis Landry, who's dealing with an injury. It's a lot to unpack here, Uncle Mozzie. You got the Bengals significantly overhauling the NFL's worst run defense last season. 149 yards were allowed per game. They had a tough start against the Chargers, who ran for 155. Now it faces Cleveland's offense with Kareem Hunt, who just got paid, and Nick Chubb, who was ferocious as well. Hunt and Chubb combined for 132 yards last week against Baltimore's tough front. So they're looking to soften up that front as well. And then, of course, the Browns gave Austin Seibert, who was the former Atlanta Falcon tight end, a big contract, and they're looking for him to contribute. Now, Cleveland waived Seibert, the kicker, after he missed a field goal and an extra point last week, and that was the second-year kicker was claimed by Cincinnati as insurance for Randy Bullock, which was an interesting move. He was calf cramp on his miss from the 31-yard line with 2 seconds left last week. Bengals coach Zach Taylor expects Bullock, who practiced on Tuesday, to handle the kicking duties against the Browns. And of course, a little history for those who don't know, there's a Centennial Plaza in Canton will be dedicated during halftime. More than 25,000 names adorning 11-player pylons placed in the plaza. Everyone who played it down in the NFL regular season or post-game has been etched into the prosperity of the pylons' surfaces. Centennial Plaza is a public space intended to be open for 365 days a year. Mozzie, looking at the Cincinnati and Cleveland matchup, it's been going on for a long time. It has some sort of new life. You bring in Joey Burrow there, brings that excitement, gives them a quarterback, and I think they were maybe a good quarterback away with everything they were building on. They made some improvements. Cleveland seems to be the old squad, the same old team. Who do you like and why in this game?
Well, I mean, Vegas has me scared because I'm looking at this line, and they're giving Cincy 6 points after getting thrashed like they did Sunday. Yeah, right. So, I mean, both of them do have a loss, but in a divisional game like this, I mean, interstate game, cross state lines, Cincinnati's got a new look. Cleveland doesn't have a new look, but, I mean, they do have a new coach, new scheme, and they're hunting for their first win. On paper, bro, they're the Los Angeles Clippers of the NFL, bro. On paper, they should they should, by all sense of the word, all means of the word, they should be in somebody's AFC Championship, if not Super Bowl. They gotta pull it together. And I think that I don't know, man. I think this 6 is just way too much to give up tonight. I think they're disrespecting these people, and I think that Cincinnati, especially Joe Burrow, because if we know anything about Joe Burrow doesn't like to lose. It didn't happen often in his collegiate career as a starter. And in the pros, I think he wants that same kind of energy, and he's a student of the game. So I can guarantee you, Joey B, besides practice, he's been in that film room since maybe Sunday night. He's been in that film room trying to figure out where the holes are, what windows are open, so he can close them and stop letting the air out the house. Because 6 points, in my opinion, with Baker Mayfield and Stooges is just way too much. I don't know how long they're gonna continue with this experiment down in Cleveland, but if they don't fix this year, but actually probably by mid-season, man, it's gonna definitely be time. It's not coaching, it's not the receivers, it's not. I mean, you got the best of everything. The only thing that's always been in question was whether or not Baker Mayfield could handle the reins out there in Cleveland. Jarvis Landry was an all-pro receiver. Obviously, Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. You know what the smoke they bringing. You know what OBJ is bringing. You know what that defensive line is hitting for. So what? And they're not in a division that's awfully smothering, considering that they're probably the most prolific, high-flying offense, at least on paper. Now, I understand Baltimore's lingering out there, and they do I get that. But on paper, when you evaluate this Cleveland Browns team on paper, they should be the New Orleans Saints, bro. I'm going to just be honest. They just don't have a Drew Brees. They just don't have a Drew Brees. But if you took Joey Burrow and put him on that team, it's over with. And Joey B, with what he has, I can guarantee you he's been in that film room all week long. And this 6 may be counterfeit. Coming off a short week, everybody's playing the same the rest, but there's no pressure on Joey B. See, Baker and the whole Cleveland Browns organization, they got a semi-truck on top of their head parked that's full, and it's got a 500-pound driver. They got all the pressure, all the smoke on top. They're sitting on top of their heads. If they don't win, if they're 0-2 after the season they had last year with all of the expectations, I heard a quote this morning that says, it's very hard to hold your head up when expectations keep pulling it down. When you have those kind of expectations and you come out and create those kind of vibes and you're wearing $500,000 watches and you're biting beer cans at baseball games and all of this other foolishness, right? When you do that, those expectations they just become heightened. They become elevated. And when you don't deliver, the public is going to ream you. It's not the 90s or the 80s where we didn't have Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. You're going to get it if you don't deliver on the things that you say. You have the team is far too impressive and you run your mouth. The issue with Cleveland last year, nobody would have said anything had they been humble. Baker Mayfield, when he first came in a season and a half ago, was humble and nobody had an issue with him. But then he started cutting his hair and he was at the baseball games and he was dating the women. He was making all the tweets. It just got out of hand. And until they kind of ground themselves in something, it doesn't necessarily have to be the coaching, the system, anything. They have to ground themselves in something, and whatever they do is going to have to be internal. It's nothing that can come inside. It can't be an outside influence. It's got to be internal. They got to make it happen. Until they do that, this team will not be a winning organization.
Yeah, I think the best thing to do if you're Cleveland is to start relying on the running game, man. Bottom line, I think they're putting too much stuff in Baker Mayfield's hands right now. And they have a lot of weapons around him. I mean, you have wide receivers. You have Jarvis Landry, Odell Beckham, Nick Chubb. You got Hunt, who they just gave a contract to. They added the tight end that was pretty good the Falcons had last year. He's there. The offensive line is much improved. They've added pieces to the defensive line, gave Myles Garrett a fat contract, complimented the other guy, Vernon Oliver, I think, who reworked his contract to stay long-term. You know, they also have good, decent. They took a step back in linebacker in my position, but they have what's his name? The cornerback used to play for the Steelers, Hayden. Hayden is back there in the secondary, isn't he? So I mean, it's man. I don't know. I just think that a lot of the stuff that's going on with Cleveland, you know, and they've drafted well. You know, Dale Pitt was another guy they drafted. He's done for. He's on the IR. but they've added talent, enough talent for this team to at least be a 9-17. I mean, I think it gets to the point where you're gonna have to, if you're Cleveland, use that running game. Nick Chubb and Hunt, you're gonna have to work with those guys. Run those guys a little bit more, and let them be a little bit more run centered versus putting the ball in Baker Mayfield's hand until he gets a full grasp on Kevin Stefanski's offense. Because Stefanski's a pretty good young offensive mind. I think he could be able to do something with that team. But we'll see, man, at the end of the day, whether or not they could be able to get things done there. So, hey, man, Cleveland, they're the Browns for a reason. I tell you what, man, that's what it comes down to. they're the Browns for the reason.
I agree.
Okay, let's move on to the next and final topic of the show about the black and gold. Who that to the rest of the family members chime in, and I see you Saints uptown. Minister of Defense for the Who That Nation is in the building. Much love to your fam. Brother Jerry and the rest of them, Brian Pearson and all the family members. Brother JT, I see you there. Brandon Cormier, big ups to the family members. Tyra and all of you that's supporting the stream. Much love to your family. And I got a bit of news for the Saints, and of course, we'll be back later on today to kind of talk more Saints with the family members. Broncos poach Saints practice squad linebacker Anthony Chiquillo. That's right, Chiquillo, the guy that missed all the training camp, maybe about 2 or 3 days. He was placed on the practice squad. The Saints liked him. He was seen as a guy that could impact the team as a special teams linebacker as well as a situational pass rusher. Not anymore. The Broncos said, well, we can't get Clay Matthews. We need a linebacker, so let's look at the Saints, see what they got. And they poach him off the practice squad. So Anthony Chiquillo signed with the Saints away from Steelers over the summer, but injuries hampered him during training camp. And with several players, one of several players the teams could retain due to rule changes, along with defensive lineman Marcus Hunt and Benny Fowler. However, Thursday, Adam Schefter reported that Chiquillo was leaving for an opportunity with the Broncos. Denver recently lost Von Miller to an ankle injury and has been trolling around rosters around the league looking to add somebody that can help. So Chiquillo was the guy. Odds of getting him on the field are better in Denver than in New Orleans, where he was buried on the depth chart. This is a move that New Orleans could have blocked had they have chosen to protect him with one of the 4 protection spots that you were given for that 16-man roster, but New Orleans opted to not do that. Through the first 2 weeks of the regular season, the Saints could have also signed Chiquillo to the active roster, but they must have other plans in place, so they let Chiquillo rock. The Saints have now several holes on the roster to address. Speaking strictly of the numbers perspective, they have not replaced rookie punter Blake Gillikin on the 53-man roster, as he was landed on the injury reserve last week, and Chiquillo's departure creates a vacancy on the 16-member practice squad. So stay tuned for corresponding move as the Saints work to get to full strength, gearing up for that Monday night matchup against the Las Vegas Raiders in what they're calling the Death Star. All right, Uncle Mozzie, you heard that. You want to comment on Chiquillo's departure to the Broncos?
Well, I mean, my Broncos, man, they got a tough outing with the advent of this new injury, coupled with the injury from Von Miller, him being on IR or hurt for an extended period of time. Denver is touted on their defense, man. It's defensive first with those guys, and then the offense gets going after that. Man, in the division with Las Vegas and the Chargers and Kansas City, I don't see it with a situation where they, I'm looking at them 8-8, 9-7 at best at this point. You're just missing too much. You're missing too much, and you don't have that leadership. If I'm them, I'm going in a full rebuilding mode, and I've got to build my franchise to get around Kansas City. And in my opinion, they don't have it. And looking at those playoff spots, you got 4 division leads. Obviously, I don't see them beating Kansas City. I mean, it's only week 2, obviously, but I don't see them beating Kansas City in the West. The East will more than likely come down to a late season showdown between Buffalo and New England. The North, more than likely going to be Pittsburgh or Baltimore. And the South, I'm definitely looking for Houston to ring that in. So when we go to our wild card, if Kansas City wins that division, the way Oakland's playing right now, I'm thinking that Oakland's going to take one wild card, and that other wild card is probably going to be the New England or Buffalo. So where does that leave Denver? You see what I'm saying? So right. I just don't see a situation where they make it to the playoffs, and because of that, Because I don't see them being better than those 6 teams. I don't see them being better than neither for the division leaders. I don't see them being better than Las Vegas. I don't see them being better than New England and or Buffalo, whoever loses that division. I don't think there'll be anything that comes out of the North or the South, because the North, you're left with, you relegated down to Pittsburgh. Could be, because you could have either Pittsburgh or Baltimore. Cleveland, I don't think will make it. I don't think they're the answer. And Cincinnati, obviously, are going to have their growing pains. And when you come down to the South, you got Houston, Jacksonville, Tennessee will be there. So they may potentially be there. But when you look at with Pittsburgh possibly being that wild card slot, you're looking at Tennessee with that wild card slot. So you got to ask, if I'm the Broncos, where do I fit in? So do I take this season and tank, and do I what we call it, hashtag what it is, trash for Trevor?
That's
do
right.
I trash for Trevor? Or what do I do? Because at this point, I'm not good enough to make anything happen. So I'd blow my team up and just try to rebuild.
Yeah, that's an interesting take there, Uncle Mozzie. Definitely an interesting take in my opinion, because I mean, Denver. That's what I've been saying about Denver. Denver is interesting because Drew Lock is he the guy? That's the thing about Denver. Is Drew Lock the guy for the Denver organization? They finally found him, and he looks he's a capable looking quarterback. But can he win in that division? Can he use the what's around him to win? Now they did bring Gordon from the Chargers over to be the top back there, and of course then you have the wide receivers like Sutherland and Jared Jeudy, Noah Fant, all these fantastic young talented players, and then you have the offensive linemen. You got a steady defense with the rest of those guys, Bradley Chubb and all those. Some Vine's gone, but they're still a strong defense, if anything. But can they put it together? That's the question. Elway looks like he's done this time around. This representation of the Broncos club have a lot of people excited about their future. But with all that unbelievable talent, can they put it together this year? That's the thing that I'm worried about. And of course, I agree with you. Las Vegas is making the playoffs, and we've covered that before, man, just to keep it honest with you. So I'm with you on that, with your take on the Denver Broncos. And at first you was telling me that you was a fan of the Broncos and that you liked them, but I guess you seen something Monday night and it made you change your mind. But anyway, let's keep it going, family. Just a little bit of information to throw out to the rest of the great Saint think tank that's tuning in on this TSC Unleashed. Sean Payton, we just got a report here that Sean Payton is not ruling out Mike Thomas for the Monday Night Football matchup against the Las Vegas Raiders. How about that? That just came across my desk. We'll cover that more on TSC, the Sports Coma, later on this afternoon. We'll cover some more of the latest news items. We'll play a few interviews, and we'll have a little fun, as we always do. So I appreciate the family members for joining us in this edition of TSC Unleashed. We'll be back later on with TSC talking Saint talk all around, baby. We got it for you later on. So much love to you. Appreciate you. Thank you for joining us on TSC Unleashed. We'll be back tomorrow. For me and Mozzie, peace. We'll see you later.